Hello again, everybody. This is Steve Kallas, speaking of sports, and we're here to talk about Notre Dame going to Stanford on the road, their final game of the regular season. This will be Stanford's final game. They did not have a good year. They're only 4-7, but they've beaten Notre Dame over the years, both at Notre Dame and at Stanford. So this is still a tough game for the Fighting Irish. Coach Kelly in his press conference really focused on their offense. They have two quarterbacks, and I'm going to read you their stats in a minute, but KJ Costello, who was the starter, had been injured. He hasn't played the last 2 weeks. He's healthy now. They don't really know who's actually going to start, but you have to prepare for both of them. Stanford can sling it. They have an excellent wide receiving core, according to Coach Kelly. I'm going to read you some of their stats as well. Interestingly, they have 4 receivers with over 500 yards. So they don't have that 1,000-yard guy, but they have 4 guys, and that causes matchup problems for a lot of teams. Obviously, the Irish are really good defensively, but as Coach Kelly pointed out, they have one of the best receiving cores that Notre Dame will face all year. And I'm going to give you the quarterback stats because they're impressive, even though they're 4-7, and the wide receiver stats, they're also impressive. They don't have much of a running game. They don't have, when Coach Kelly says they've lost a lot of guys on defense, to me that's code for they're not very good defensively. And also Notre Dame, of course, is a 2-touchdown favorite, even though they're on the road. But listen to a few stats on these quarterbacks because they're interesting. David Mills has played the last 2 games. He was the backup to KJ Costello. Costello was hurt. He might come back this week. We don't know. And this is for Saturday, November 23rd. 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox, obviously 1 o'clock on the West Coast. But David Mills had played the last 2 games. 2 games ago, he threw for a school record 504 yards against Washington State. Even though Stanford lost that game, he threw for 504 yards. Last week against Cal, he was 26 for 35 for 290 yards, but they lost that game as well. So Coach Kelly's right. They have an excellent passing game, but it has not led to wins this year. That's part of the problem for David Shaw, the coach of Stanford. KJ Costello coming back from injury. He hasn't played since November 9th at Colorado, where he was 18 for 29 for 245 yards. Unfortunately, they lost that game as well. Their leading rusher is Cameron Scarlett, who has rushed for 797 yards, and he's really their only real rushing threat. But they're not a running team. They like to sling it. And that could be the only thing that could give the Irish some trouble. I'm going to read you about these wide receivers because they're a fascinating group. And, Coach Kelly seemed to fear them a bit. They're very good. There's a bunch of them. They're athletic. They're fast. And, again, the quarterbacks like to throw the ball because they don't really have much of a running game. But listen to these 4 receivers, all of whom have more than 500 yards. I'll give you their receptions, yards, and touchdowns. Michael Wilson, 46 receptions, 576 yards, 4 TDs. Connor Weddington, 51 catches, 506 yards, 1 TD. And how about Simi Fehoko, only 18 catches, but for 503 yards and 6 TDs. He averages 27.9 yards per catch. That's incredible. Nobody does that. And according to Coach Kelly, their tight end, Cody Parkinson, who has 45 catches for 552 yards, and 1 TD, he's one of the best catching tight ends in the country. So the thing to focus on in this game, when Stanford has the ball, is obviously they're going to try and sling it. If they try and run it against Notre Dame, I don't think they'll have much success. And you'll also have to see whether Notre Dame's going to bring pressure on whichever quarterback is playing. They both can throw it, so you kind of prepare the same way, or at least that's what Coach Kelly said. So again, Notre Dame's a big favorite. They're playing to get into a high-level bowl. They're playing to get 10 wins in a season, 10 or more for the 3rd year in a row. No team in the history of Notre Dame has done that. We'll just have to see if they can accomplish that goal as well. But they should win this game. They should get into a good bowl. And then, of course, as you know, the bowl season won't be till the end of December, the beginning of January. This is Steve Kallas, speaking of sports. We'll see you the next time.